What's your take on Giancarlo Stanton? Because he's kind of got that injury prone label a little bit too now, but
Mhm.
I'm still really high on Giancarlo because we saw what he did when he came back. There's something to be said for just hitting the ball really, really hard most of the time, and he does
Yeah.
that. And we saw when he gets into that groove, like he was on a groove in the playoffs, like he was during his MVP season when he hit damn near 60 home runs.
Mhm.
If he can do that and stay healthy for a season, he's going to be a monster. He's going to make everyone
Yeah.
forget about his troubles over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who disputes, like, Giancarlo Stanton being a great player, like, that's once again, like, the moron filter, like, they're just not a smart baseball person. Because Giancarlo Stanton, I mean, he's a fantastic baseball player, he's an MVP. I think the thing is that, one, obviously, the injuries. I mean, I'd be more comfortable with him, like, being called injury prone because there's a difference between Judge, like, still playing over 100 games every year and landing on the IL, than Stanton, I mean, who in 2019 played 18 games, and he had injury issues in the past. And a lot of his are like muscle injuries. But the thing with Stanton is that when he looks good, like he looks really good, but when he looks bad, he looks terrible.
Yeah.
But the same deal as with Judge. I mean, if he can just stay on the field for like 130 games a year, which I'm glad the Yankees are going to make him the full-time DH. I think that ought to help. And he's a guy with like what you said with Judge, how he should kind of just ease up a little bit. For Stanton, like, bro, just try to stay healthy, hit home runs, don't bust it out of the box, and like that's all I need you to do. And I saw the New York Post article they put out the other day about how Stanton is kind of like he's making the Yankees financial situation tough. And a lot of people were like bashing them for that article. And I love Stanton to death, but that's not wrong. Like no matter what you feel about Giancarlo Stanton, his contract, it is hindering the Yankees a little bit to have financial flexibility. So I think you can kind of feel both sides, and be like, man, maybe the Yankees shouldn't have gotten him, but also recognize that he is a really good player and we're a much better team when he's on the field. As we saw in the postseason, I mean, he went on a historic run. He hit just as many homers as A-Rod did in 09 in like what, 10 less games.
Yeah.
So I mean, if he had a full postseason, he probably sets the record. But he's got to stay healthy. It's like an easy answer, but he just really does.
35 home run guy waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he got as much better on defense as he did over the course of 1 year, it tells me two things about him. One, it tells me he's still improving. And two, it
Yep.
tells me that he's a hard worker and he's focused on baseball. When he came up, it seemed to me like he paid a lot of attention on shoes and he was a little bit more fashion over function. But it seemed like maybe that trip down to the minor leagues really kind of sparked something in him where he realized, hey, I've got to change what I'm doing. I got to change my approach if I'm going to make it in New York. And whatever adjustments he made, we know he made the physical adjustments of like turning his knee inwards in his stance or whatever, but whatever adjustments he made to his defense and his approach at the plate, he walked more, they've worked. And Clint Frazier is on his way now because there's nobody who could argue with his physical talent. And it seems like he's finally
Yep.
channeled that into a full all-round ball player. And I think he's going to be an all-star.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely matured a lot, I feel like. But at the same time, like, the media wasn't always too fair to him. I feel like they kind of had it out for him from the beginning. Like for starters, I mean, like remember that rumor that turned out to be false that he requested Mickey Mantle's number? Like, who honestly believed that? Like, do we think Clint Frazier is that dumb to request Mickey Mantle's number? No, I never bought that for a second. Two, I mean, the hair issue, like as far as I know, I mean, Clint Frazier's hair was never longer than what Garrett Cole's is right now.
Right.
And they made a big deal out of that. And as for his defense, a lot of people forget this dog was concussed in 2018. That has an effect on you just by the way you play. I mean, like he may not go as hard for a ball as he would have before the concussion. So it takes a little bit of an adjustment period to kind of get back to how you usually feel in the outfield. And I think that's what we saw this year. He looked so much better. I'm not convinced he's going to be like a gold glove defender, but definitely not as bad as we saw him in the previous year. And I think it's just because of the concussion, he's still adjusting from that. So he should be real good.
I had a theory on his defense too. It's a lot of his defensive struggles were happening when he was doing the whole shoe thing. And I feel like maybe changing your shoes every day affects the way that you're landing in the outfield when you're running and trying to keep your eye on the ball. Mm-hmm. It can cause the ball to bounce up and down or, just kind of, give you a different feel. You see a lot of guys stick with the same cleats day after day. And I feel like changing them every day couldn't have had a good impact.
No, I mean, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, the shoe thing, that's, I guess, like a rightful knock on him in a sense. And like, the thing is that like anything you do that's like polarizing in New York, when you're playing well, nobody cares. You know, they're gonna say, "Oh, it's cool." Like Clint Frazier's got a dope shoe collection, and then when you're struggling, it's like, "Oh, it's a distraction. He's not focused on the right things." So I think it's good that he got I guess he's not passing. He's still, he still gets his shoes and whatnot, but he doesn't really post about it as much. As it's not as big of a thing. So I think like with all the distractions aside on Clint, and now that I think he's fully embraced by Yankee fans, then I think he's kind of feeling a little more comfortable going into this year, and he better get a starting spot. You would figure he would. If Stan's going to be the DH. Only thing that makes me a little bit nervous is I could totally see the Yankees bringing back Brett Gardner on like a 1-year deal to be a fourth outfielder, and then he's starting every day come the second week of April. I could totally see that happening. Which if I was Clint, like if that did happen to me, bro, requesting a trade 100%. I'm honestly surprised he hasn't at this point because I've been very critical of Clint Frazier, but this dog, he deserved a starting job like in 2019.